All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Climb, the StarCraft 2 podcast focused on the below masters blue collar leagues. I am your host, Will, aka Lord Cranial.
Hello and hello, and my name is Dan. I go by Captain Hoppa. Each episode, we will dive into the ups and downs of the Diamond Ladder experience while searching for the secrets to get good.
We're just two normal players who are just working on climbing to that next rung of the ladder, and we hope you guys enjoy the discussion. Today's topic is going to be about playstyles and what you should consider if you're a new player or if you're someone who maybe has been playing a while and thinking about mixing it up a little bit. But before we hop into that discussion, do you have a question for you, Dan? How's ladder been treating you?
Um, Pretty good. I guess the big news is that I got my Diamond 1 promotion last week. That was the first time ever, so very exciting.
Well done,
I
man.
haven't been, thank you, thank you. I haven't been promoted like in a while. So it's nice to get that screen. And also, I've been solid Diamond 2 for quite a long time. So I wasn't really expecting to get it when I got it. I think I was still using the older MMR ranges that I had in my head where Diamond 1 is like 4.1K or something like that. So I ended up getting it at, 3.9 and change. But very exciting. I am very happy about that. The harsh reality though is that I realize now I will have to make friends once again with the red triangle because because one of the luxuries of being Diamond 2 for close to a year is that I haven't seen that red triangle in a long time. But he has appeared, and I will get used to seeing him because I am right back to like 3.8, like my normal. So I just get to experience the joys of having the triangle stare at you all the time. But hey, I'm still excited that I got the promotion. I'm still excited that I have this fancy new, border and everything. So it's very exciting. And again, like getting a promotion in StarCraft is one of those amazing joys, and they're only going to get further and further apart and more difficult for me to get. So I'm happy, and I'll continue being happy about that. So that's the big thing. Otherwise, like ladder session specific, I mean, it's good. It's good, question mark, I would say is my answer. I do definitely notice that I am playing opponents who are a lot more punishing. Like now that I face a handful more people in the 3.9 4K range, it definitely, it's just a little tighter. You can't exploit some of the things you used to be able to exploit, and people are just they're more wise. They're more wise to all the tricks and all the weird things, and yeah, they still make mistakes like me, but there are I don't it's just a little more tight, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm struggling with that a little bit, but it's also I enjoy the challenge because, facing more challenging opponents is it's satisfying in a way. And there's a lot of these games that I'll lose and I'll be like, "Hey, you know what? We lost to this guy, but I'm happy with how we played it. I'm happy with the decisions we made. I'm happy how we got there. And well done to my opponent." Um, but it's cool. I'm having fun. I'm having fun.
Yeah, that's a huge step forward hitting Diamond 1, so, big congratulations to you. I do have to ask though, the game for your highlight, is it going to be the game that puts you into Diamond 1? And if not, can we go ahead and discuss that a little bit?
Um, no, it is not. And I'm having a trouble thinking about the game that I won that put me into Diamond 1 because that's like how little I thought about it because I was surprised when I got the promotion screen.
Yeah.
It was, I don't know. I think it was just a random ZVZ that I won with Ling Bane pressure. I won pretty early and pretty decisively, and it's just like, you hit rewind and then you hit, return or exit game or whatever, and I get a fancy animated screen. So I it's on the stream, you know. I mean, you could I could dig through the VODs, but I seriously cannot remember. I think it was just a ZVZ, honestly. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
that's about it for for what I remember on it.
yeah, I remember going back because at some point I popped into your stream and I saw Diamond One. I'm like, wait, what? And I actually went back into the VOD and like looked at it. And it was kind of funny to see how surprised you were. You're just like, when did I get here?
Yeah,
But
well, and exactly, you know, I was setting it at 339 and change, and I was like more excited to hit 4K than I was Diamond 1. Like I thought I'd hit 4K first because we were still, you know, on a relatively hot streak at that time. So, um yeah, I don't know. It's in general, like the games I've been playing, I've felt very cool because I feel like I've been very decisive in a lot of my decisions that I'm making. Um, 80% of those decisions are me walking across with queens, but I'm still making these calls in a relatively fluid manner, right? Like I'm processing the information that my opponent has presented to me, and I'm just like, yeah, let's just go. You know, like there's certain things that and I'll get into that for my highlight game, but it's cool when you can make these decisions, especially when they are decisions that end the game. And it's cool when you can just be like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, and it can pay off. And um, I've really been enjoying that as some of the games that I've been playing.
yeah, so you would say that your intuition has been improving a lot recently.
Yeah, and so this is another thing too that I was kind of reflecting upon as well, is that so I'm let the record show that I am not good at scouting. I do not feel confident scouting, but it is something I am consistently actively trying to improve. And one of the things I noticed is that when I'm in games now, what I've realized is I have this voice that is I have a bigger drive to know when it's 100% necessary that I scout, right? Because previously I would just be like, I don't know what's happening. This is not cool. But now it's like I kind of know what's happening, but I need to confirm it, right? And it's a different tone in my I don't know what's happening because I don't know what's happening. But I'm like, if I can just check one thing, you know, if I can just check that one thing, I'll be fine, and I can relax and I can go back to whatever it is I'm doing or macroing or whatever. Um, and again, part of the whole like this is also a ZVP thing is you have to kind of put on your detective hat a lot of the times, and sometimes it's the two small things that you see first that you go, that's that's different. That's different. I wonder what that means. And then, but it's finding that third piece of information where you go, aha, you know,
Yep.
and getting those aha moments is something where I know when I am missing that big aha because I know either from experience or from situation that it will kill me if I don't find that aha moment. So it's still a work in progress, the scouting, but I just feel more confident at you know detectiving my way through the Protoss build order, uh, and I think it's I'm seeing results from it too. So it's fun, it's satisfying in that kind of way, you know.
Yeah, it does tend to, especially at least in my experience, it does seem like whenever you're scouting a Protoss, you kind of have like this invisible checklist. It's just like, okay, I see that they built the gateway over here. Cybercore went down. Okay, let's see, natural nexus, second pylon, check, check. First tech. Where's the first tech?
Yeah, yeah, and you know it's something that I feel like I wouldn't have this kind of extra game sense if I didn't put all this time into scouting, and it's been like months. So like it's weird because I think scouting is one of these things too where it's a very active thing and it's a very situational thing. And I think for me, a lot of times where it was very frustrating early on is when you scout and it literally tells you nothing. either you scouted too early or your opponent's build doesn't make any sense or you're just in the wrong place seeing the wrong things or something like that and you're just like great I just scouted and I'm just as clueless as I was before but um, I do feel like the pieces of the puzzle are starting to come together better. um, I'm not bulletproof. I'm not there all the time but I'm there more of the time than I was previously.
Yeah, so since you're putting a lot of effort into scouting and trying to learn the ins and outs of that, is there anything that you've been struggling with outside of that? Anything in particular that's been kind of giving you some issues on ladder or
I don't know. Like nothing jumps out to me as an issue. Uh, I mean, I do have a low light game that I am willing to complain about for a while, but I can get to that later. But it's I this is also maybe just more of a Zerg thing, but it's also me being just like a general macro guy at the core, where it's I go in very flexible. Like I think I go into games a lot more flexible than I did previously. And with this expectation to just be like, we'll see. We'll see what I do. Like I have things I want to do and I have things I'm comfortable doing, but I don't have a set expectation when I go in. And I think a lot of that has to do with the scouting and a lot of that has to do also with just the experience I have at this point and my ability to just be like, if he does this, I'll do this. If I see this, I'll try this. Like, that decision tree of, left and right turns has been definitely more fleshed out and it's satisfying. It's also kind of nice to go in and just be like, we'll see what I do. Who knows?
yeah, that's quite commendable, man. Yeah, let's go ahead and go into the highlights and lowlights. What do you got for me?
All right. So the highlight one is it's a ZVP that I played, and it was on Blackburn, and um there was a initial robo push, I believe, with Immortals or something like that. And this ties into the thing I was talking about being decisive. But there was a robo push. I scout it. I know it's coming. I'm ready for it. I crush it. Fantastic. And then, from this position, I'm already ahead. So I know I've been in this position before, right? And there's many different routes to go from this position, but I'm ahead. I have three base. My Protoss opponent is trying to take a third, or they could just try to all in me again, right? So um, I am sniffing this out actively as what his choices are for the next one. And so um, I've also lost a lot of games in this position just by being too aggressive and just going straight across the map immediately. And then I'm attacking with, 40 slow roaches. So it's not ideal. But anyway, so I'm like, okay, I know what his options are. I know what my options are. Let's see what he's doing. And so I scout his base and I see that he's doing double Stargate Void as his whoops, I'm behind, but I can maybe try to get back into this game. And I was like, no, no, no. No, no, no. We don't let that happen here. So I just looked at my base. I was like, well, I have like 7 or 8 queens. Let's go. And I walked across the map. The queens took a little stroll, and we crushed him.
Nice, man. Nice.
So I was happy I was able to sniff out the follow up, and I was also happy to be like, yeah, I think that this is the right call. And it's one of these calls where you have to make it just based on the game situation and where you're at. And it felt great. It felt really incredible to just pull that trigger and just be like, yeah, let's kill him. Those are
So
my favorite decisions to make in the game, and when they work, it is the best.
so was it like a conscious decision or was it almost like an impulse just like got to go. We got to just do this.
It was very conscious based on what I saw, what he was doing, because I was like, I'm gonna kill him when he has 4 Void Rays, not fight him later with Hydras when he has 12 to 14 Void Rays, right? And I was like, I don't want to play this game where there are 2 Stargates producing producing voids. I do not want it. So it's yeah, it was just taking in as much information as I could and feeling like yeah, I can get across in time to smash it.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. All right. So let's go ahead and share that low light.
Okay, well, this game happened what, 2 days ago? 2 days ago on Beckett Industries, and it was a Protoss opponent, and I 12 pool on this map because why wouldn't you? So my 12 pool lings arrive at the Protoss base. There is no natural and there is no wall into the main base. So I'm like, great, fantastic. I delay the pylon. I kill the first pylon. I dive on it with the lings. I lose some lings in the process, but whatever. I killed the pylon. I delayed warp gate. I'm pretty happy about it. He can't produce any units out of any of the gates he has, so I'm chilling. I'm chilling. Yeah, we had a 12 pool, so the worker count might not be huge, but I can I can safely make these decisions. I can safely make these decisions because I feel like I know what's going on. Um, and so the game continues to play out, uh, and his natural is very much delayed. Uh, and I'm just basically I feel like I am so far ahead, right? And this is the spoiler. There was a hidden base that my Protoss took as his natural. So
Oh, I remember
so
this
part
game.
oh my God, it's so painful. But so part of the reason why there wasn't a natural wall or any sort of wall in the main is because he just took a Nexus in the top corner as his second base. So the most painful part about this is that every decision I made would have been right if he was actually on one base, right? And it's like I am trading very inefficiently, but I'm like, this guy can't even mine off of his natural. Like, who cares? Who cares if it's not a perfect trade? He's stuck in there. And um the longer the game goes on, the more I'm like, oh, I keep getting cleaned up. Like I've been cleaned up, once or twice already, and it didn't connect. The dots did not connect for a long time. And the biggest tell that I got, which again, it was way too late for it to really matter, is that I was killing his natural, like I was in his natural mineral line, and he takes his probes and he squishes them into the corner, and he hasn't even recalled yet, but I know that the recall, that's what that's for, right? Like I know he put the probes there because he's gonna recall them. And then like 8 seconds later the recall happens and I'm like, there's a hidden base, isn't there? Like I knew it. I knew it. And it's like again, it's one of these tells that I saw, but it was already like 4 minutes too late for me to do anything about it. Because I just basically sacrificed my whole army too to dive on the natural. I think I even failed to kill the Nexus on on the second base location. So I just it was so painful. And I really scrubbed through the replay afterwards just to see like I was searching for extra tells, extra clues that I could have picked up on and just didn't really uh see. And well, another thing that I forgot to say in this game too is that he had like an adept pressure. So he walked across with like 12 adepts and the defense was clean, so clean. I lost maybe 2 drones for 12 adepts. So again, I was extra confident in my position too before I did the follow up attack. And making these decisions when you think you're massively ahead is totally fine, but in reality, I was down. I was down like eight to 10 workers when I was doing this, and like yeah, when I look at it with everything, I'm like, this was the worst. Like because I assume I'm on a higher economy, but I am not. I am on a much worse economy, and I am gonna throw all these units away. So, I scrubbed the replay for clues, and there were a couple clues that hopefully I'll be able to pick up on in the future. But I don't know, man. You just when you find that base and it's already been way too long, and like by the time I was trying to kill it, it was fortified and everything, and just bad news bears.
Yeah, it's always really, really frustrating to suddenly realize that your opponent is actually getting way more income than you thought, and that there was probably a moment of weakness earlier on in the game you could have exploited if you knew that was there.
Yeah.
It's like every single time I run across like a hidden base, I'm just like, oh damn it. Just all right, I guess we're I guess I missed that, and we're going to late game. Come on,
Yeah,
let's just do it.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, I feel your pain there.
yeah. And you know, it's not my first rodeo, you know, losing to a hidden base, but nothing set the alarm bells off early enough. You know, I have certain things where I'm like, this feels weird, or this feels out of proportion. And some of the tells that I think I missed were like he had like 12 adepts at his natural, and I flew an overseer in, and then he warped in like four stalkers. And looking back on that in the replay, I'm like, that's way too much. Like you can't afford that, you know. Even to just like do that warp in really fast to kill my scout. It's like I'm looking at that with all the information. I was like, maybe that could have triggered some of the responses, but you know, I have certain things that, you know, if I see it, I'm like, okay, lings are going to the corners. You know, it's not too bad, but it just never happened. It just never happened in that game. So I lost.
Yeah, it's always frustrating. Um, I mean, did you actually pick up on anything besides for like the stalkers? Is there anything else that you could pick up on if there was another ninja base in the future?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think it's more related to like the amount of stuff he had, I think was the biggest one I could have seen. Um, or just the fact that he stayed in the game after I killed his first pylon. I think that might have been a tell as well. Like, and it's yeah, it's just it just slipped away, slipped through my fingers. I think the worst part that makes it the most like devastating is the fact that I was so confident. I was so confident for that entire game about my position and about where I stood and where my opponent stood. And to have to have that just not be there at all. Oh, it's brutal, but it happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't think I have any other things I could ask you about your latter sessions. I feel like I had one question, but I've completely forgotten it, unfortunately.
That's all right. Um, I'm gonna turn it around onto you. How's your ladder going?
Uh, it's been a bit sour, to be honest. I actually dropped back down to 3.4 ish, down from 3.7. So
Yeah,
I'm a little bummed out and kind of salty about ladder right now.
sure. I totally understand.
Yeah, it's I think I think part of the issue is just like I'm already coming into some of these ladder sessions frustrated. Like I sit down, I'm already just like, okay, let's see how much more MMR we're going to lose today. So I
Yeah,
think I need to kind of train myself out of that again. And
sure.
I do
Yeah.
genuinely mean again because this has definitely been something I've done in the past. But
Y-
um, yeah, it's just if you feel like you're kind of losing to stuff that you shouldn't be losing to, and you know,
Do you feel do you feel this because of like the ladder itself or like certain matchups or just kind of in general or what?
yeah, I think it's just ladder in general. Like you know, I've talked to a few friends about this before, but I don't give myself enough space to kind of decompress and then
Yeah.
start laddering. Like I will drag frustrations into the ladder with me, and that kind of it's not it's a very bad habit to have. Just to like, okay, I'm frustrated, so I'm going to sit down and play ladder. Like
Yeah.
you have to put some distance between what your rate like your regular work day or anything like that, and then go on to ladder. Like do something relaxing, something to put yourself in a positive mindset, like working out or something like that would definitely help. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so like I sit down and I take those frustrations into ladder with me, and I'm just like, Protoss is so busted. This Terran's
Yeah.
an idiot. And it's funny because usually after the ladder session, like I walk away and I'm just like, wait a minute. And I sit down, I'll like watch the replays. I'm like, oh my god, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
and I'll look at some of the calls that I made, and I'm just like, what? No, that Terran
Yeah.
was on 5 barracks and 2 bases. What are you thinking? You can't push into that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, and
I
I think the sometimes the VOD is actually really helpful for that. As someone who also streams, like it's because I'm verbalizing everything I do and think and feel, it gives you almost like a good snapshot of like this is what I was thinking in that exact moment. But like you have access to the replays and you know the results and stuff, so you're like, yeah, that was wrong, and so was that one, and that one was wrong too, and I just kept playing like it was nothing, you know?
yeah, and then you start to whenever you watch the VOD, you start to see yourself rage queue. You're like, no, don't do that. Stop, 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 stop. It, it is great to watch your own VODs, and because like watching the replays are also good, but if you really want to like take a look at your mindset, watching the VODs are pretty good as well. The only downside to it is if you're frustrated and you watch yourself, you're going to feel really stupid.
Yeah,
I've definitely sat down and like watched myself a couple of times, just being like, no, just why are you so frustrated right now? I don't understand.
yeah. Well, you know, it's also like it's kind of the whole like Twitch chat backseater kind of thing where if you're outside of it, it looks so different. If you're not actively in that game, playing the game with your full attention and focus, and you're watching it, it's it's 100% a different experience. And the realizations or the you know, fact finding or whatever you want to call it, it's just different, and it's just easier and completely removed from you know what you as an active player is thinking and doing, right?
Yeah. It is kind of funny because if you go back and watch your own VODs, like you look like you're playing slower. Like in that game, you thought you were doing like a million actions per second.
Yeah.
You were doing 3 things at once, and then you go back and watch it, it's just like that army stood there for 2 whole minutes without doing anything. What?
Yeah.
But yeah, I have been going back and kind of watching the VODs just to try and get a feeling of like when that kind of stuff starts to trigger, like
Yeah.
anytime that like the frustration is starting to kick in, so I can in the future just be like, all right, I got to take a step back and think about this. Like
Yeah.
I don't need to be rage queuing. I don't need to be like hopping into a replay like immediately after a brutal loss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I also think you kind of mentioned this too, but starting on the right foot mentally is a very important step. And I think it's also very challenging sometimes to make that like gear shift. And it can take a lot of practice where like you think you're like, oh, I'm ready to play, but like you're not. You know, like you're still stressed out about something, or you know, it's and that's one of the realities of StarCraft is it's hard to completely clear your mental burdens before you hop into this, you know, emotionally and psychologically stressful game, right?
Yeah,
As a
exactly.
as a leisure activity, right? Like
Well, yeah. Yeah, because StarCraft is going to add to those burdens a little bit, as
yeah.
much as it just is, because it can be a stressful game. It can be a very emotionally charged game, and it will add to those burdens. So anything you bring into the game, like, is going to be compounded whenever you start to play.
Yeah, and you know, it's a real challenge sometimes to especially if you have that voice that is like apprehensive about a matchup or something like that. Like I've had it before for myself too, where um I see the Protoss on the loading screen and I'm already like my shoulders tense, you know, just that extra amount. Just from
Yeah,
anticipation and experience, right? And I wish I had a good like solution to this, but there's not really an easy solution other than you have to really just, I don't know, focus on what's in front of you, try to be as focused and intently as you can, but there's some days where it's definitely a lot more challenging than others too.
yeah. I've been watching a lot of neuro videos because Neuro is probably one of the best people for like mentality coaching in StarCraft. Um, and one of the things that he did say is just like instead of like either dreading, a matchup that's about to come up or, like immediately blaming balance for something, look at it as an opportunity to practice or challenge yourself, which that is way harder than he
Yeah.
makes it sound. I swear. Like I've been actively trying to do it, but it's still there's still always the thing that comes through the cracks. Just like Protoss, man, I
Yeah.
can't believe it. Carriers, ah,
Well, and for me too, I think one of the things that really helped me is that um, try to never call my opponent's build a bad build, right? There are still times when it is legitimately like not a build, and but as soon as you start going like this is the worst build I've ever seen, to me that's how I tilt myself is when I start saying I can't believe I lost to the dumbest thing I've ever seen, right?
yeah,
And a big part for me is just being like, yeah, I'm gonna lose to a lot of dumb shit. I'm gonna lose to it. Like, I am okay with accepting that because there are still plenty of times where I'm like, yeah, this is a new situation for me. This is a new way of my opponent doing things, but I don't know. It's something I've tried to eliminate from my vocabulary in thinking about the game because it's not so much I can't believe I lost to this dumb thing. It's more, okay, how do we prevent this from happening in the future, right? And how do we change something, anything to detect this at a point to where it's, not out of control.
yeah, absolutely. There's another psychological thing that kind of happens whenever you start to, hit a downward slope, and it always comes back to that pesky MMR number. I
Oh yeah.
swear, every single time you get this, like as soon as you start seeing the number tick down rapidly, you start getting, you start the mind starts going just like I can't lose anymore. I can't lose any more of this precious number. I have to play better. I have to do better. And you start to kind of like you're starting to kind your mind's starting to kind of race. You're starting to make bad calls because you're nervous and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's
It's
not
always
real.
there. The
It's
MMR is
always
always
there.
there.
It's always
It's
there.
always staring at you, and I think that's always a challenge. And I think a lot of players, myself included, we tie a bit of our identity to that MMR, right? Like I'm a 3.4 player, I'm not going back down there. I'm not going back down there to slug it out with the 3.2s. Like, it's silly, but I think every StarCraft player kind of feels that to some degree. So
Yeah.
I totally empathize with that feeling.
Yeah, I will say that I've been trying to get away from that feeling a little bit more. And the best way that I've found to get away from it is to think back to practice sessions with NSGSL where, I can go toe to toe with some Diamond 1 players. I can beat, some really high level Diamond 2 players and maybe some Diamond 1 players. Like that's kind of where I want to put myself, but it still kind of goes back to, like then why did the Plat 1 guy beat me? I don't understand.
Yeah.
It's such a hard tightrope to balance on to try and to try and figure out the most healthy way to perceive yourself in StarCraft.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. Do you want to go into highlights and lowlights?
Yes, and I want to start with the low light because
Sure.
it had the potential to be a highlight, and I'm so frustrated with myself about it.
Sure.
So, it was a TVP on Jagannatha.
Okay.
Um, I was doing, my normal 2-1-1. I'm going to hit him with a quick marine pressure and see what happens. This guy started sending adepts across. And I'll be honest, I was struggling with it a little bit. I believe I did lose a couple of SCVs, but I was trying to push him back with Marines. I was trying to get my Marines in position to like intercept them as they're coming in. And eventually I managed to kind of push them back a little bit. So then I think, okay, I've lost Marines, so you know, I can't go across the map with Marines, so I'm gonna have to swap into Widow Mines and go ahead and get that third base. So as I'm doing that, he immediately starts to contain me and is just like piling the pressure on constantly. And I'm not really looking at the Widow Mine drops. Like I go in and I, micro them a little bit, but I'm not paying attention.
Yeah.
So he's containing me more and more, and he rushes straight to Disruptor. And he plops the disruptors right outside my base. He was trying to throw disruptor balls in to take out, chunks of infantry, but he wasn't really getting good shots off. Like he was taking widow mines out, but nothing too severe. I was
Yeah.
being a little bit impatient in trying to, get rid of him because I was trying to put my third base down. Like it had already been turned into an orbital and everything, and I was already, starting to oversaturate my natural. So I was feeling a little pressure, and I'm just like, I gotta push him out. I gotta get rid of this. So I start taking kind of inefficient fights, and I start taking losses to disruptors, and eventually I kind of throw my hands up, just like, you know what, he can have it, GG. I pop out. I was ahead in supply, and I was ahead in workers, and he had just put his third base down. Mine's was
Hmm.
finished. Mine's was finished and ready to go, and I had extra workers in my natural, and I sat there. I'm like, why did I do that? I
Yeah.
was like I was in a fine position if I hadn't panicked and like constantly tried, because it's essentially the same thing as breaking, a TBT contain. You just build up a big swell of infantry, you don't take losses, and then you just rush into it.
Yeah.
And I was so frustrated with myself.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in situations similar to that too, and even just like being contained is such an uncomfortable position. And
Yeah.
I feel like when you're as a player, when you're made uncomfortable like that, sometimes your brain just kind of flies out the window. Like like because it's this weird mix of like pressure and like that kind of backed into a corner feeling where you're like, I gotta get out, I gotta get out, I gotta get out. And sometimes you can take some ugly fights, sometimes you can make some weird assumptions about your opponent's position. Did you look at the mines in the replay? Were they blowing a lot of stuff up or what?
They blew a decent amount of stuff up, but the thing was is that I wasn't actually looking at probe numbers in his
Yeah,
natural base, and he was short.
I
I
see.
didn't like I just didn't take it into account.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny this is your low light game because my runner-up low light game was a ZVZ where I left when I was up 20 drones. For very similar reasons that you described, where it's like, I don't know, I just kept losing Ling Bane fights. And I kept getting bad trades and he was getting good trades, but I was droning and he wasn't. He was committed. He was all in on 22. And so, I lost my third. I still made some drones, but I'm contained and I'm uncomfortable. And I just assumed that he had 55 drones when I left. And then I hit rewind and I go from rewind to instant pain.
Yep. Yep.
Seeing the situation because I made assumptions. I made assumptions on his economic position, right? And it sounds like you made assumptions as well.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, the assumption was bad
Yeah,
because he had a lot of units in front of my base. And if I had just held my ground, got up a big swell of units and just pushed him away, like I probably
yeah,
would have won that game. But also if I had looked at my at the damn mines, I would have been okay as well, but
yeah.
you can't win them all.
Well, I also think this is funny too. Sometimes when you're the player who is contained, um, a lot of times the macro is a lot tighter, because the person who's attacking is putting all this energy into positioning and denying stuff, and they might have cut workers to get that push out. But I know for me, when I'm contained in a match, I hit every inject because what else am I gonna do? Like I have two bases to look at, like
Yep.
so I can get a huge swell of larva because my opponent maybe has three, but they're not injecting or whatever, or they're just trying to kill me. So I do think that's always one of those interesting things where it feels like you're trapped, but you're actually okay, and like it's not great, but it could be a lot worse.
Yeah, I think part of it comes down to part of it comes down to it's just an unfamiliar situation. Like it goes against what you had planned out, and that will cause you to
Yeah.
panic a little bit. When in reality, you don't have to change up your plan too much unless they are like attacking a command center or a hatchery or a nexus. Like
Yeah.
everything else kind of in front of that is a bit like is expendable. Like
Yeah.
like the bunker at the front doesn't really matter all that much
Yeah.
in that kind of situation, but you know.
Oh yeah. No, you get the adrenaline going. You see some of your stuff dying. It's funny because I also do this as the aggressor a lot of the times in ZVT. Like I have a huge Roach Ravager army and I'm just waiting. I just wait. I just wait for that third base to float down before I jump on it. I wait for him to think that it's totally safe and then I just arrive. And you get a certain amount of control like that, but I also know that every time a Terran is like cautiously like poking their head out to like land their third, I'm like, that's my opening, like so I've been on both sides of that and I totally relate to that.
I've 100% done that to other Terrans as well. It's just like you're just watching for that command center to pop up over the horizon, just like, I got you now.
Yeah, yeah, it's the best. All right, so what you got for a highlight here?
I made a Protoss leave with only a mind drop on. So it's the latter game on Lightshade. I don't remember. I don't remember all the specifics because this was a while back and I forgot to check the game beforehand. But
Yeah,
essentially, what it came down to is he was doing he was doing some kind of robo build. So I was just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go into my normal mind drop. Like, there's nothing really out of the ordinary here. I think this person forgot to put down their third base and was oversaturating their mineral line. It might
yeah,
have been because it was supposed to be a Colossus build, and you get your third base a little bit later. So they were oversaturating their natural. I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna drop this. Like I'm gonna deny a lot of mining time here. I dropped and I killed. I think it was 15 to 20 probes in one go, and
nice.
he just left.
Nice.
And it's one, yeah, it's not like this big grand battle, but it's one of those things that's like it's so satisfying to see. It's just
Oh
like
yeah.
I got him so good that he left.
Oh yeah. Well, it's also like things going better than expected is always a fantastic way to win.
Oh yeah.
Um, and maybe that Protoss lost 4 games to Widowmines previously, and he's just like, you know what? I think I'm good. I think I'm
Yeah, I
good.
don't. I mean, I don't blame him because I know whenever I get Widow Mine dropped as Protoss, I'm just like, Widow Mines. Jeez, like why didn't Blizzard
Yeah.
take this this unit out of the game?
Yeah. Well, and for me too, I've had this happen a couple times where it's like you do the economic damage and you're like, great, great, now I can do my follow up and it's gonna be sick. And then they just leave and you're like, oh, I guess I don't have to do my follow up. They're just gone, and it saves me a lot of trouble because I don't have to close the game out as as challengingly as I might need to sometimes. So that's great, man. Sometimes you gotta get those juicy wins in there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, now that we are done with discussing how the ladder's been going for us, we can hop into the topic of tonight. And tonight we're going to be talking about playstyles and how they might relate to lower league players. So there is something every time I have a new person who comes into my stream, there's always the same question or the same two questions. What faction should I play and how should I play it? And it's always such a hard question to answer because I have no idea who this person is. I have no idea how they want to play. I have, it's it's always one of those tricky things and I wanted to, you know, run some of this by you and see what you thought. But usually if a new player comes in, I'm just like I just tell them, play however you want. It really doesn't matter early on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think for me, my go-to is just like play what looks like the most fun. You know, there are some. unit comps and unit choices that are less beginner friendly. Like I know I'm guilty of this, but I watch Partying and Zest play and I'm like, I want to do that. That looks cool. But like that is hard to do.
It
Like
really is.
stalkers are expensive and they look cool and they look invincible when Zest is using them, but uh you probably won't be able to manage your economy well enough to produce enough of them, especially if you're a new player. But man, when I watch them, I'm like, I want to bully people with stalkers. That looks great. So like those are the exceptions, but again, it's the thing I usually tell, like especially if they're like lower league and they're just looking for like, the newbie build, right? Like and the newbie build is really important, I think. Like the builds you start off with are really important because they kind of they teach you the fundamentals and they teach you situations, but fundamentally are pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I watched a lot of Winter's stream, and he recommends just maxing out on Roach Hydra, and that's what I did for everything early on. Uh, and it's great because it is a simple unit comp. There are 2 units. There are a couple upgrades for those units. You could probably get the regular Evo upgrades too if you want, but they are 2 units. They synchronize well together, and they can handle just about anything, right?
Yep.
When you get higher, it starts to be okay. They can handle anything, but they are not ideal for certain things. But that's way later. That's way later, right? I think when you're really starting out, it's really just about maxing out, right? Just
Yeah.
making a lot of stuff.
I
And
mean, yeah.
and
It's
it's sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that's basically how I made my climb from like bronze to gold. Was
Yeah.
just like I literally heard somebody say, like, oh yeah, bio's the way to go, and I'm just like, cool, that sounds awesome. And I would see like
Yeah.
I would see like a couple of program games where like they're boosting medevacs in and out, and they were splitting all their units up. So I literally would just max out on Marauders, Marines, and either too little or too many medevacs, and then just
Yeah.
walk across the
Classic.
map pretty much.
Yeah. 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 And it's I don't know. If you're a new player, you can decide to just be macro-ish, or you can choose to be really weird and really cannony, or whatever. Like, and those are pretty. Uh, there's a wide chasm between those, right? And if you want to play weird and do goofy stuff, like by all means, go for it. But it is very challenging when you're starting out with that kind of stuff, and you don't have the same fundamentals as a generalized macro player. And um, for me, like my playstyle kind of developed as I improved because early on it matters, but it doesn't matter that much. Like
Yeah.
uh, it's important, but it's not kind of at the same time. But when you start to get a little higher, gold and plat and all that, it you have a lot of choices in how you want to play from your general macro start or whatever. And those are the choices that you get a lot of freedom to make these choices. Do I want to be really aggressive? Do I want to be really defensive? Do I want to go for this really slow unit comp? Do I want to go for this really fast unit comp? Um, and you are afforded these choices. But I do think that learning these fundamentals is a big deal. But um, like my playstyle has also changed, as you go and as you climb and as you are exposed to different situations. Um, I know I've watched, I mean, I drew a lot of inspiration not only from Winter's coaching, because he was like, yeah, it's easy, just make stuff, make Roach Hydra, it's easy. And I'm like, oh, I like easy solutions. Like, I like solutions that are simple and straightforward. And then I also watched a lot of Game Time stream, and Game Time is one of the most dedicated Rochi boys, and he did it at a North American GM level, and I really enjoyed watching it, and it looked so much fun. And then I started doing it, and then I was like, this is fun. And then I just kind of kept going through there, and you still got to make adjustments, and you got to tweak things, and as you learn more, you learn how to tailor it. But I still feel like I am, in essence, derived from those influences. And I still see stuff in pro games and stuff where I'm like, that is an interesting solution to this problem or something. And I get inspired for playstyles all the time. And I think if you watch enough StarCraft, you get a lot of inspiration from a lot of different sources.
Yeah, I mean, it's like your playstyle is kind of fluid. Like it is definitely going to change, and like you said, my playstyle has changed. Over the years, like especially like in TVZ, I've become way more aggressive with my bio. In TVT, I've kind of back like actually fairly recently, I've backed up a little bit and kind of gone for a more laborious approach with like tanks and air control.
Yeah,
Um, but it's not that you're like ever locked into any one thing. You can literally play the game however you want. Like a few months ago, like I decided to hit up, people like Aerette and Helium Bunny, just like, hey, I want to play some Protoss, but I want to play some really aggressive Protoss. I
yeah,
want
yeah,
to
yeah.
know how to cannon rush people. I want to know how to get, how to put void rays in people's bases before 5 minutes.
Sure.
And and then I also wound up dipping my toes a little bit into getting into sky toss in the late game and stuff like that. Like you're never locked down into one thing. You can literally learn whatever you want. You can make up your own styles if you really want to. Now I will say that they're not standard,
Yeah,
but you're still probably going to get wins because pe-
yeah. If
people
you're
like
if you're
me.
making
Yeah.
if you're
People
making
like,
enough
yeah.
stuff, you'll get wins.
I
Like
mean,
if you make
yeah.
enough stuff, you'll get it. You might not get there in the fastest way possible, but you can definitely pull some stuff off for sure.
Yeah, and like
Um,
even stuff like that, you can tune in.
yeah.
Get it all tuned up, and you can climb to the ranks with your own stuff. I mean, look at Florencio.
Oh yeah. Well, I think the other thing too is that like if you are saying to the world, yes, I am a macro player, right? That you can do anything with that. Like once you have that foundation of like I know how to saturate my bases very well, or I know how to get my tech in a timely fashion. Like you can be whatever kind of quote unquote macro player you want, right? Like you can be a super defensive one, you can be a super aggressive one, you can be a timing oriented macro player, because all of those styles still require that same kind of foundation, right?
Yeah,
And they're all built up off of that, right? So me, myself, uh, I like to describe myself as macro with a twist, right? I'm still macroing and I'm still growing a big economy, but I also enjoy putting on a lot of pressure or, forcing the issue with my opponent to kind of gain control of the situation, right? But without the macro, I don't have the ability to do that, you know? Um, and it's I don't know, man. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing that you can just kind of do stuff. And I've started to be more experimental, because I'm like, well, I'm in Diamond 2. I've been here for a while. So let's get weird. Let's see what I'm capable of making the game a little weirder, right? Because I can still make drones while I'm being weird.
yeah,
And it's an experience, it's a learning experience. And I've said this before, I believe, but the versatility that I have developed in Diamond it's much wider than it ever has been for me.
yeah. Absolutely. It it definitely feels like it's gotten a little bit broader for me too, because I'm more of a like macro timing oriented type of player.
Yeah,
So, and I mean, most Terrans you meet really are. There's not a lot of in
yeah,
between. But yeah, so I've been, experimenting with 1-1 timings with just +1 weapons. 2-2 is a
yeah,
very potent power spike as well as +3/+3.
yeah,
And, experimenting with those different types of timings and trying to get them on time and then, push out and just like wreck an opponent.
yeah. Um, is there a particular player that you think has influenced your style?
Yes, innovation. Like
Oh yeah,
100% innovation.
sure.
And it's mostly just because like he's very much a mechanics oriented player. Like he
Mm,
does have his flashy moments, don't get me wrong, but everything he does feels like I can copy it.
Hmm.
Like it's it's very simple. Like he gets he doesn't miss any SCV production cycles. He doesn't miss any army production cycles. Like his supply block timings are nearly non-existent. He's
Yeah,
pushing out at correct times. It's just like it's all stuff that, is it's fairly easy to follow and you can copy it, up to GM.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting too because there are some players where it's like, yeah, copy this player, and there are other players where you're like, no, just don't, no, careful, careful, don't, don't try too hard to copy that one because you're gonna have a bad time, and it's not gonna make a lot of sense. But like, yeah, like stats and like innovation, like it's just solid, right?
Yeah.
It's just solid. It's thorough. It can be adapted to different situations, and for me too, like I love a one size fits all solution, where it's like, yeah, just do this and you'll be covered in this list of situations. And it's like I'm kind of lazy like that sometimes. So it's like I'm more than happy to have a solution that solves multiple problems. But yeah, innovation is the blueprint for so many of the beginning Terran build orders and build responses and things like that. And so, that's cool, man. That's good to know.
Yeah, it's this definitely one of the people. Don't watch Beyond. Like watch Beyond for entertainment. Watch Innovation if you want to actually learn some stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But yeah, actually, who do you tend to emulate? Are you more of a? Well, I imagine you're a really big fan of Rogue right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, Rogue is a master of different styles, and Rogue just does whatever he needs to do to win. So I am always in admiration of that fact about Rogue because Rogue will be like, "Oh, this looks strong. Time to destroy you with it nonstop." And it's like, "Oh, cool." Like, it might not be the most exciting series, but I certainly enjoy his it's this kind of, yeah, I'm gonna do this again, of course. Like but okay, so but I love Rogue. Don't get me wrong, but the biggest influence I had is probably Sue, um, who's unfortunately not an active player these days. But it's this it's his ability to just get in his opponent's face and just be like, "Oh, you wanted to do this and take a fourth and get 80 workers? Okay, well, how about 120 supply of roaches here?" Like and I love the activity that he puts onto his other players, where it's like, yeah, you're gonna have to fight me now, and I'm never gonna stop fighting you, and you're gonna just struggle to stabilize, maintain, and just be constantly like shifting your tanks back and forth or pulling out of position and doing damage control the whole time because Sue is just yeah, I'm gonna keep going. And I just love that sort of like more units, and then to follow up your units you make more units. It's very simple but very effective and very fun. Like it's fun to be kind of bullying your opponent out on the map, and that's something I really enjoyed. And I also love Cyril because I love Cyril because he's just every time Cyril does something, you're just like, yeah, that's the way you should do it. It's like, again, it's that example of like this is like the perfection tier of what it should look like, you know. And Sue's not going to look perfect every time he does it, but when he does, if Sue is able to do like what he wants to do, he's going to look like he's in the driver's seat the whole time, right? And I really enjoy that.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. He has that. His pressure is incredible. Like every time I watch him play, like in a ZVT, am just thinking, like even I feel like I have to get out on the map right now, and I'm not even playing. Just
Yeah,
like I have to get counter damage done, but I can't leave.
yeah. Yeah, and it's really fantastic. I will say so like out of current players now, I definitely really like a Lasers style as a role model Zerg. And I think one of my favorite things is that I was already talking about this, but one of my favorite things is a Laser's ability to be like, you know what? I'm gonna go kill you. Like, oh, you're doing this build? Okay, I'm gonna do this and this and this, and you're dead. Like it's that sort of killer instinct, which I think is a very incredible trait to have as a player, just to know the situation and to know that like, yeah, this is enough information for me to pull the switch and end the game. And that's one of my favorite things. And I really enjoy watching good old Miko play. It's always a treat. Always a treat.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, realistically, you can. All of the pros have are like an archetype of a play style. Honestly,
Yeah,
like from Haas to parting, from innovation to beyond, from Cyril to Rayner. Like you can literally, if you're looking to emulate a style, you can find a pro who's probably doing it.
yeah.
I mean,
Well,
if you want
this
to
this is
go
another
ahead.
question I have. So, is there a player that like you admire their style, but you know that you are not capable of it, or like you know you won't ever do it? Is there a player you can think of like that?
It's it's pro it, it's probably got to be beyond
Yeah,
it. Like in all seriousness, because I've seen Clem, U Thermal, Hero Marine, Innovation, TY, all I've seen, and Maru. I've seen all of them play, and I feel like you know what, I can probably emulate that to some degree. But Beyond puts down like two proxy racks in a factory out on the field. I'm just like, nah, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that.
yeah,
Bases are meant for, like your buildings are meant for bases. You don't
yeah.
just put them anywhere you want. Beyond,
Oh yeah.
and
Well,
it's
and you know, it's the inspiration too that where it's just you're just like floored by the even. I'm floored by the attempt. You know, like I'm like, how is this even trying to be a thing? You know?
yeah. Well, it's also just like he kills 40 roaches with 10 reapers, and it's just like I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that, man. Like it's
Yeah,
your style is the antithesis to what I want to be.
yeah,
Like I respect you a great deal, and I love watching you, and one day I would like to be you, but I can't do that, man.
yeah. No, it's always interesting for me personally. For me, that player is Bly. Um,
Mm.
because I mean, Bly does a lot of different things, but I also think he doesn't get enough credit for legitimately how good he is as a player. Because I've seen Bly make some of the most insane comebacks that I would have never thought possible. Like legitimately impossible. Like I've seen games where Bly is in them and I have been saying Bly is dead for like 10 minutes. I'm like, he's dead. He's dead. There's no way to come for him to come back into this game. And yet, and this is something Pigs talked about too. Bly has this kind of ability to be like, I have one thing going for me in this game, right? Whether it's his army, whether it's his map control, or whatever. I have one thing going for me, and I will ride that one thing for as long and as hard as I need to set myself up for the next move. And again, I think a lot of people, they kind of say bad things about Bly. Oh, he does just goofy stuff and whatever. And yeah, he does do goofy stuff, but his ability to know the situation and also know the priorities of his opponent is honestly incredible. And it's phenomenal to watch where Bly has like seven mutas and you're like, he's dead. He's dead. There's no way. And I keep saying that for 6 minutes and then he's able to pull it out, right? I also do think it's funny. He also does have this reputation for staying in games too long, but because of the fact that I've seen him pull it off, I'm like, hey, look, he can do it. It's fine. He's in competition. I'm willing to let him do it because every once in a while he actually does pull it out from those horrible situations. But it's just funny. It's just funny that his ability to dig himself out of a hole is, I think, unprecedented in the scene.
Yeah, it's honestly kind of funny to see Bly play and like come back from these impossible situations when meanwhile you'll see you'll see diamond streamers just like, why are you still in the game? I don't understand, get out. And it's just like, I still have a chance, man. I have two marines and a dream.
Yeah, I've gotten mad at my own chat before for uh, typing GG preemptively, and I'm like, don't do that. Like I win a fight and they type GG, and I'm like, please don't do that because I've thrown from worse positions than than this. You know, like I've I've allowed my opponents to get back into games that they probably shouldn't have. So like I want it to be closed before, we start celebrating because I've let it slip through the fingers many times before.
Oh yeah. I've there have been many, 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 many times when I've had a TVP in the bag, and then everybody's just like, or like I start to feel kind of a bit of relief. I'm just like, I got this guy right where I want him, and all of a sudden two disruptor balls come down. I'm just like, no.
Yep. I mean, it's amazing how one thing can just lead to the next thing.
It was really true. Um, but I mean, it's kind of a risk you take whenever you play, and it's a legitimate play style. You get a couple of disruptors, and they're miracle workers. They really are, just like
Oh,
widow mines are.
oh yeah, and I think this is something we'll probably get into a whole episode about. But like being a specialist and being a generalist in this game, and to me, Bly is this. He is a specialist at a lot of these scrappy situations, right? Where it's like it's 1.5 bases to 2 bases, but some weird stuff has happened and some weird units have been forced out, and it's scrappy getting the gas count or whatever. And he just the decision making in those situations I think is incredible. Um, Even when it's a terrible situation that maybe he shouldn't have been in the first place, but still, like, because he's used to these situations, he has a higher IQ in these weird bonkers kind of situations, and it's incredible. I get a lot of inspiration for comebacks from these.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of players who do that. Drag people down into the mud pit and then play with them there. And you know, everybody like or most players just want to have the standard game, but the moment stuff gets flipped on its head, it's immediate panic. And I know because I'm one of those players. Like the moment you flip the script on me, I'm going to be floundering for the rest of the game. I'm probably not going to win, and I'm just going to be like frustrated for the rest of the game. But I mean, it is really effective to just kind of drag people down to your level.
Yeah, well, and I think Florencio is a great master of that. Excuse me. Florencio is a great master of that because he also has this really incredible IQ of this is what my opponent thinks that I think, or like, oh, my opponent is doing this response, so I'm going to abandon the thing I was already doing and already committed to and do this completely other thing. And like it's one of these things where like you can like sometimes you can see his opponents like tilting because it doesn't make any sense. Because I think in StarCraft too, you make a lot of assumptions, right? Even if you're on top of it, you're still making assumptions to some degree. And Florencio just can really punish those assumptions and just punish these choices where players are like, yeah, I'm ahead, I can do this. And it's like, well, maybe you're not ahead because and it's just incredible to watch. And it's just a different approach, and it's a different foundation, but it still can get him a lot of results.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what do you say about Florencia that hasn't already been said? Dude,
Oh yeah,
like dude's fantastic.
definitely.
It is a joy to watch.
Yeah. Um, well, I don't know. Do you have any final thoughts on playstyles, like in general?
If you're starting out in the game, play whatever you want, and if you're our level, experiment a little bit, do some other stuff. Play a mech game if you're a bio player. Try
Yeah.
out Ling Bane if you prefer Roach Ravager. If you're a Sky Toss type of person, try Robo.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah. I mean,
experiment a
I
little bit.
it's there's a lot of fun ways to enjoy this game, and I do think too that sometimes you might even be surprised by what you enjoy, until you try it. Because for me too, like I used to never Ling Bane attack in ZVZ because I would just die to it. But then once I started doing it, I'm like, I will do this every game.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy it, and I enjoy the control it gives me, and it's just part of my regular regular setup. So just have fun out there.
Yeah, enjoy your time. Just learn something new, try out something. All right, and with that, I believe we're done with episode 3. What do you think, Captain Happa?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I think it was we got into a lot of nice stuff here, and it's always a good time having these talks here.
Yeah, absolutely. I always enjoy having my guests here on the show. Anyways, guys, we do have Apple Podcasts and Spotify, where you can also be found in other places where you find podcast related materials. We did actually start having, or we do have YouTube now for putting up the climb episodes. It's going to be on my channel. Um, yeah, Captain Happy, do you have anything going on that you'd like to share?
Um, yeah, I mean, same old, same old. I'm streaming on Twitch, having a good time, laddering, trying to be best friends with that red triangle who has resurfaced in my life. But we're getting along fine. It's gonna be okay. Uh, but yeah, I'm laddering all the time. My YouTube, I have 3 whole videos up there now, and we're building a library. That's how I'm trying to see it. Is I'm trying to build a library of short videos of me talking about StarCraft related topics, and I'm very happy with it. I'm happy with how the videos come out, and if you enjoy these kind of discussions, I think it's an enjoyable set of topics in there. So, that's what that's what I have going on right now, and yeah, just trying to get good.
Yeah, I feel that. All right, guys. Thank you so much for coming by tonight. Really appreciate it. Thank you once again to Dan for coming out on the podcast and helping me out with this. It's always a pleasure, man. And with that, I think we're going to close it out. I hope you all have fun. Good luck on the ladder, and we will see you next time.